Hey, what's up, pups? Welcome to the Power Up Podcast, a show that talks about pop culture from video games to movies to whatever you like, from the good, the bad, the ugly, sometimes even the supernatural. That's kind of my thing. But with us tonight, I'm super excited to have this guest on the show. I'm very humbled, very blessed that he was able to take the time to hang out and just to share his story and to hopefully nerd out and talk about video games and whatnot. And that is Stuttering Craig. How's it going,
Hello.
brother?
What's up, pups?
Yeah, what's up, pups?
Let's go, pups. Love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. My show is called the Power Up Podcast, so PUP. So there you
Love
go.
that.
I literally sat down and I was like, let's think of acronyms here to have something there. Same with my name as well, because like I don't know about you, but like if it's like, well, there's some people out there that'll just use their name as their brand, I guess you could say, and then other people will be like, well, let's have some pizzazz to it. Mine was just I'm sitting there and I'm going, what rhymes with Greg? So I look up Greg and I look up and I found powder keg, which is very true. I can get very salty at times. I can be a salty pup for sure.
Nice.
And I was like there, and then kind of actually I used to watch James Rolfe, the angry
Mhm.
video game nerd, and I used to watch him when he was on ScrewAttack, of course, and game trailers and all that.
Mhm. Sure.
And kind of wanted to try my take on the angry review style sort
Ooh.
of thing,
All
which I
right.
mean James pretty much. I know there's other people, and I know this can be argued, but a lot of people, will say that James is the one that kind of established that sort of
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah that
Yeah,
that game.
James is the first, the best, and pretty much created the entire genre. And he
Yep.
perfected it. And yes, there have been imitators. There have been people who are funny, but
Mhm.
there's only one angry video game nerd.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I wanted to put on the twist of having someone who's extremely like bipolar, because it was always funny to me to where you see those rage clips of people truly getting angry at a game and then swearing they'll never play this game again, or why am I playing this? And then like 2 hours later they're back at it,
Of
sort of
course.
thing. So I would want to play into that extreme volatile sort of thing. You can find like some of those old videos on my channel too, when I
Ooh.
used to be really fat, but now I'm not fat because I lost weight.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I was doing the keto diet, and yeah, oh man, I was pushing like 270, and
Wow.
then dropped down. The furthest I dropped down, and this took over a span of like a year or so, so it wasn't like a dramatic body shift sort of
Sure.
thing. But I dropped down to like 190, and now I'm around 200, so I lost 70 pounds. So
So, just curious, how tall are
Mhm.
you?
I am 6 foot.
Okay, 6'1". Yeah, cool. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
they say I'm supposed to be 180 if you're 6 foot, sort of thing. How tall are
Mhm.
you?
6'4.5".
6'4" and a
Yeah,
half.
I'm tall as shit. Yeah.
Tall as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that definitely played in a factor because you used to play. I got up here slam ball.
Yes, yes, I did. Good old slam ball. It's
Good
a
old
long time
slam ball.
ago. Yeah, it's fun
Yeah.
times, you know.
I saw that. I got here. Did that kind of start? I'm seeing a date of 2003. Is that kind of when that started? Slam ball, or at least you getting into that area, or I
Right.
guess that
So,
sport? Excuse me.
okay, so yeah, area sport, TV show, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, slam ball was super fun. I saw the first season of it in 2002, and I was like, I got to play that. I remember like seeing the trailers for it. It was going to come on after WWF Raw, and
Yes.
I like it was like, we're slam ball coming soon to Spike TV, and I was like, what? Because I'm like, NBA Jam, let's go in real life. So I was there. I was all about it. Saw the video. I saw the first episode in 2002, and I was like, I'm gonna play that. And that I was like obsessed for like 8 months of
Mhm.
just how am I gonna do this? And that was Slamball was my first real foray into the internet as far as internet culture.
Hmm.
I found this thing called message boards, and there was a Slamball message board that I started posting on, and that's actually what led to me getting the tryout for Slamball because I was so active on the message board. And the
Wow.
guy who ran Slamball was like, "Hey, I'm going to invite one person from the message board out to do a tryout." And I was really active, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's got to be Craig." Blah, blah, blah. So I ended up getting asked to go on a tryout. So I drove out there, and I think they were expecting. I don't think they were expecting much. If I'm being honest with you, they were expecting like, oh, this. What they're doing was they're making this documentary about slam ball at the time, because it was like this underground thing that's become this national sensation. Oh my gosh! And look at this cool thing this guy, the owner, did. He let this guy from the internet come and try out. And so I go out there and I'm like, oh, he's tall and athletic, and he like can actually play basketball and stuff. And oh, he's actually really good on the trampolines, because I spent like 8 months. Like I'm telling you, my goal was to be the best, like #1 pick in slam ball. And just physically, I wasn't. I'm not 6'8" and long arms and like 250 pounds. So that wasn't going to happen. But I was about as prepared as I possibly could be. But it was a really fun experience. So I got drafted to play slam ball in 2003, and it was a really fun experience. And then they brought it back this past year, and I think they're actually bringing it back. Well, actually, I know they're bringing it back this year again. So they tried to revitalize it a few times, and I don't know if it's going to stick this time. But it is, and the game that like they're playing now looks nothing like the game that we played like 20 years ago. It's still trampolines in the court and basketball and stuff, but it's not nearly as fun to watch, if I'm being like very old man on it. Like if you could be an old man on slam ball, I will. But yeah, it was a really fun time, and I got paid to play a sport, so I can technically say I was a professional athlete.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because I was reading that it said I found that it said you really liked basketball,
Yeah.
and kind of wanted to pursue that area too. Was that kind of something, because you also stated in a past show, and you can just obviously find it online, that you have a degree in journalism. Was that something that was kind of happening at the same time? Was there one where it's like, I really want to get in this, and then once that kind of I either plateaued, or it was like, you know what, maybe I want to shift to something else? Was that kind of, or could you just
Yeah.
explain kind of like how that happened?
Yeah. So I went to school and I got a degree in journalism, and I really wanted to be like a sports announcer guy, right? I wanted to call games on TV, and I did that in college. I called basketball games and football games and high school games and all sorts of stuff. And I travel around and do all that stuff. And unlike most people's like 4 years of college, I took 6 to get through, because I took a 5th year because I just didn't take it very seriously. And then the 6th year was split out. I took two different semesters off to do 2 different things. One of them being slab ball. And so, yeah, the original idea was I want to be like a journalist guy, do play-by-play and all that. And I finished with a degree, and I really quickly learned that there was, if you wanted to do anything in the sports broadcasting world, you had to know somebody. And I didn't know anybody. I didn't intern at any, this is fault of mine. I didn't know anybody. So like I could either, get some like really, I don't know, like do a single A baseball in Lincoln, Nebraska, or and then hope somebody dies, and then maybe I could advance, and make $13,000 a year calling minor league baseball, or I could go to the internet and start a radio show about video games, and that radio show ended up being the first iteration of Side Scrollers, which was ScrewAttack eventually. So yeah, man, I would say I just was realistic about my broadcasting perspective, but I still very much love to do it. If I had the opportunity to call play-by-play of anything, I'll do it. Whether it's a match of I was the original shoutcaster, baby. I'll tell you that much. I love calling games like it's the Game 7 of the World Series or Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and I love making it hype. I love making hype moments. So. It's kind of one of those skills I don't get to use very often, but I love doing it.
Well, I guess that's a good way of like segueing into, you mentioned video games. So when kind of like it's like, what, I don't want to give up on this broadcasting or this announcing sort of thing, and I can connect together possibly video games. Was that something that just out of the blue came from nowhere, or was that something like, wait a minute, like I'm noticing that this could be something that's unique and can be combined together, sort of thing?
Yeah, so I interned at a sports radio station in Dallas, pretty prominent one called The Ticket, and
Okay.
I interned for the evening show there, and I learned a lot about radio at the time while doing that. I served as kind of like a intern producer for the show, and I was finishing up school and did the slam ball thing and all that, and I really thought it'd be cool to do like like a gaming radio segment on the show. And,
Mhm.
it's a sports radio station, that it doesn't really matter. Esports are not a thing yet. And I was really pushing for the idea of like, hey, what if we did like something on the weekends? Because the weekends are usually for syndicated radio. Is a low cost show that could, it could bring in a different audience, whatever. But I'm just like a stupid intern. Like nobody knows me from, Jack in the Box, right? So, so I always had this idea, and I remember being over at Tom's house. Tom was the guy that I started ScrewAttack with, and I was over at his parents' house, and we were just kind of, I don't know, just BSing, playing games or whatever. And I was like, how come nobody's done a radio show about video games? And I was like, well, we should do it on the internet. We'll do a radio show about video games. And I had no idea what a podcast was, like zero idea. And this was 2005 when we're talking about this, and I think we did our first like test shows in November and December of that year, and then we launched with our first episode of Side Scrollers February 15th, 2006. So yeah, it was just kind of a natural thing. Let's talk about video games, let's make it fun. And back then a podcast was like 30 to 45 minutes, which they still are, but like 30 to 45 minutes in 2006 was like, oh my gosh. And there was no way to monetize it. There was no sponsorships. It was just something that you did for fun. But we tried to turn it into a business, and eventually we did. And it was, so I think it was just one of those things where it was kind of I don't know. It was not like I was like looking like, oh, is there a hole in the market or anything like this? It was just like, well, how come nobody's done this? Well, let's do it. Why not? And that's when podcasting was just in its infancy.
Okay, well, you kind of answered something that I was kind of curious about, because I was looking, and I mean, you're saying side scroller. I'm saying some people are saying ScrewAttack. So it's
Yes.
yeah, because I was getting a 2005, 2006 is kind of when things started going. So you had so it sounds like 2005 was kind of I guess the pilots sort of thing.
That was the idea. Yeah, that's when the idea phase came in. 2006 is when we launched ScrewAttack, and ScrewAttack launched. So the original idea behind ScrewAttack, after we realized that we couldn't like do, originally I was like, what are we going to do? Oh, we'll do a podcast. And then we went out to, nice. We went out to, as like our buddies, me and Tom went out to a trip to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico with our girlfriends at the time. I think his wife was like his now wife. I think, I don't know. Haven't really kept up with Tom, but I'd imagine they're still married. Anyways, we went to Puerto Vallarta and brought a video camera at the time. Not like there was, iPhone wasn't a thing. So we brought a video camera with a tape, and we just thought it'd be funny to go around and video ourselves. We found some luchador masks, and we had Speedos, and we just filmed ourselves going around in Speedos and luchador masks and like taking pictures of people. And we were like the life of the party.
There you go.
It was awesome. It was stupid fun. And I remember getting done doing that, going back to like our hotel or wherever we were staying, and being like, that was fun. Like, we should do that. Like, we should make videos like that and put them on the internet. And that was kind of the original idea. So when we had ScrewAttack, we had this podcast called Side Scrollers. And then as we started adding people, Angry Nintendo Nerd at the time, awesome video games, a guy called Game Jew. The original idea was you had all these different people and the side scrollers on ScrewAttack. So ScrewAttack was the hub with side scrollers, with Angry Nintendo Nerd, and so forth and so on. And eventually, the side scrollers was always a staple, and I think we ran 444 episodes during its lifetime, its original run.
Nice.
And which was, every Wednesday I think was Side Scrollers Day. and it was a weekly show, and it was good, but really where we kind of took off was the videos and talking about like classic games and top tens and things like that. So
Yeah, very cool. I remember watching the top tens. Yeah, for sure. So, because you just love the quick summaries of games, because sometimes people will be listing games that you never heard of before and whatnot, and it's like, especially nowadays, where it's like, I mean, a lot of the lists could just be the same thing unless you generally haven't played it. Because I grew up, my first system was Nintendo, so I remember Super Mario Brothers slash Duck Hunt. So I had that bundled version. And then we had all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games because I love those. But I never played any of the Zelda. Like, I never played any of the Zelda. Unfortunately, I liked Ghostbusters. So you picked up that Ghostbusters game and you realize it's garbage, but
right.
2 was kind of okay, sort of thing. And then, but man, the
Well, it was a different
Nintendo
time.
just had so much, like, such a big library at that
Yeah.
time. You can still find that.
Well, I mean, so that era of games was so drastically different, right?
Mhm.
This idea that like you look back on these games, you're like, they were bad, but we didn't really know they were bad at the time
Mhm.
growing up. You know,
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles, the original Ninja Turtles, I would say it never got the moniker or the label of bad until James reviewed it for the first time. I would say that
Mhm.
people up until James's review thought the original Ninja Turtles game was a good Ninja Turtle game, pretty odd, like not your typical. It wasn't the arcade game,
Mhm. Yep.
but it certainly wasn't bad.
I'd say
And
difficult, if anything.
yes, it was
Difficult would be the label.
right. It was a difficult Nintendo game, and so but yeah, we had the opportunity to talk about those things, and it's really kind of fun to kind of look back and talk about. We for a very specific window of time, 2000, I don't know, 2008, 2000, 2007 to 2011 or 12. We like ScrewAttack really shaped video game culture based off of like our personal experiences, and that was really really cool. Being able to talk, the video game vaults and talk about these old games that we grew up playing, or maybe we were exposed to for the first time. But I always looked at like the Video Game Vault series as kind of an oh yeah. I didn't really have a way to describe them, but the idea was when you watch them, you go, oh yeah, I remember that game. Oh yeah, Bonk's Adventure. Yeah, that game was great. Kind of like how when you go on X today and you see like some of these retro posters, and they're like, what do you think? What do you think when you see this game? And they hold up like Turtles 2 or something. You're like, oh, it's
Oh,
all
yeah.
nostalgia, right? And that's kind of what that series was. And then like top tens were more or less like 10 vaults put together.
Mhm.
Just really short, even shorter than a vault, because a vault was 90 seconds, 2 minutes. I mean, they'd be perfect for TikTok today. Whereas, like the entries for the top tens were like 30 seconds tops. It was like, here's the game, here's something funny about it, and then some sort of punchline to finish it. And
Mhm.
they were perfect length videos for the time, like 8 minutes, maybe 6 minutes, just in, out, boom, 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 boom. And everybody loves lists. Everybody loves top tens. And so that really helped as well.
Mhm. What gaming console did you start off with?
So the first gaming console that I really gravitated to was definitely the NES. We had an old Intellivision with the spinny circle disc thing on it, right?
Yeah.
And the number keypad.
Yep.
And I remember playing that, playing like Tank in games like that. But when the Nintendo came out, and specifically Super Mario Brothers, specifically Tetris, those were like the two early games for me that really was like, whoa, this is awesome. And then just getting to know other games by going to friends' house, going over to my buddy's house and seeing the games that he had, and then sharing those games. Or because it wasn't like today. Like I got a Steam library with, I don't know, 500 games in it, right? And you
Mhm.
buy these big old packages of games. Oh, you get all the Star Wars games for $10, and you're like, okay, I'll just buy all the Star Wars games. Like I never played any of them, right? But
Yeah.
I have like 25 Star Wars games I never touched. But they got my money, And whereas like back then, I remember thinking, I was like, we got a lot of games. And we did. We had like 15 games. I was like, whoa. And these
Yeah.
games, the games were like $30, 40 bucks at the time, which, today's, thanks to today's inflation, would be like $6,000 today. No, it'd be like
Jeez.
no, it'd be like 60, 70 bucks today. But, so it's, I always felt really lucky as a kid to, have friends and it was more of a cultural thing. You'd go to school and you talk about what games you had. You saw what you saw in Nintendo Power, what you saw in EGM magazines, and it was fun being a kid in that era for sure.
I definitely agree with that because I've had guests on that have been pretty prominent in different fields of entertainment. Doug TenNapel, creator of Earthworm Jim,
Yeah.
Vic, voiceover industry, Ruben Langdon, who does Dante and the motion cap
Mhm.
from Devil May Cry. And I was always asking them, and I go, because my biggest thing is like something has happened, like not just something has happened, something did happen to where we have this infestation of taking games and bastardizing them because they're an already established franchise. So it's just this assumption that, well, we can just copy and paste these die things, slap them on an already established franchise, and we'll make our money back lickety split because people will like it. And it's like, no, like gamers don't like it. And I've always asked them, I'm like, was any of this chaos? Did you see it back then? Like, because for me, the 90s and the early 2000s are like the peak. It was like anything was possible. If it failed, it failed, but at least you had a hell of a ride doing it, sort of thing. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. And if there was anything, it would stay behind the scenes and get solved that way. It would not affect the product. The product now, that's part of the job description and needs to be in the product. You need to think this way. You need to have DEI or dismantled, infest and, just destroy everything.
Right.
And it's,
Well, yeah, I'll say this. The 90s and early 2000s, that time period you're talking about, when you look at the game catalog associated with that, there was a lot of big swings, really big swings at trying things. There's a lot of exploration. I always go back to like the mid 90s when PlayStation 2
Yep.
were first introduced. I like to think of that as like gaming puberty, right? Where you had this, you went from these beautiful 2D pixel games, and then you get to this like blocky, weird gaming's trying to find itself polygon thing, which at the time was awesome, cool. But you look back now and you're like, it's like, ew. It's like looking back at a picture of yourself in middle school. You're like, oh my God, right? And
Oh, man.
Right. So, but games today, the budgets attached to the games are ridiculous. And, you see games that are costing $100 million. And you're like, well, okay, which means it just like large movies at that cost, there's a lot of money invested in that. So the idea of taking a risk is not there. I'm of the mindset that if I have $100 million budget, I would much rather have $10 million games or maybe $25 million games, because I think the likelihood, now look, you don't get the big blockbuster, but I think the likelihood of success of just giving people the creative, like $5 million for a budget for a game to you and I is like, what, but in the video game industry, it's not that much. Right. So it allows for a little more creativity, allows for smaller teams. There's not as many people working on the games, which allows for people to kind of fulfill their vision. And that's one of the things that I think is missing right now in the mainstream aspect of video games, the AAA side, because I do think that's alive and well in the indie side, very much so.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, and I think that's one. We had a guest on today. He was talking about the indie space and everything, and how many indie developers there are. And he's right. There's a million, a million indie developers out there, just plugging away, trying to get their game out there and trying to be exposed to a new audience. And that's the biggest part of this whole thing. So, it's definitely different today than it was then. The games as a service aspect is considerably different. Back Back in the day, you bought a game, you had the game. Now it's, well, you have access to the game for a certain amount of time, and that game may end, which it probably will. And then that obviously opens up the entire conversation of like game preservation and the importance of that, which is we could do 5 hours on that.
So. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you said it beautifully, because I was gonna bring it up too. When it's like, hey, Steam has all these old school games that you remember playing, or you at least played over, like you said, at like a friend's house or something like that. An old friend that I remember way back in the day, I remember him showing me a Red Alert, and then Red Alert 2, and then Red Alert 3. And they recently just released, they had the Red Alert Complete collection, and now it's gone again. And I snagged it on Steam, got all the Red Alert games. But do I really have the Red Alert games?
Right.
Do I really have it? Because when I was getting, I got a bachelor's of fine arts degree, and no joke, I was in, let's see, that was 2006, 2010. So that was when iTunes was starting to pop up. And I remember one of the classes that I had, the teacher talked about the thing that started popping up with iTunes. Do you really own the song? Because if you scroll in their agreement thing that they're starting to do it, you don't actually own it. You're renting it. And now it's gotten to the point to where if a company has access to who you are, and they go, well, we don't like the way you think, we don't like your ideology and stuff like that. Oops, your digital library all of a sudden is gone, and
Right.
sorry, you can't re-download them again. That's very, very dangerous. And to me, absolutely disgusting. And then that falls into the gray area, because I would call myself, I'm like a hybrid gamer. If I can find a way to play an old school game in the most uncensored, this is what the developer wants, as possible, and if that involves emulation, if that involves ROM hacking, if that to decensor it, or patches or something, I'm going to do that too. And then that can even stem into where it's like, okay, but I also like to have the physical copy of the game because I want to actually own it.
Right. Yeah, having a physical library is becoming more and more apparent today, right? And I've kicked the tires on doing so. We did some games back in the day at ScrewAttack. We did the first 2 Angry Video Game Nerd games, as well as some iPhone stuff, which I would love. I think that if I was to do a game again, well, it kind of depends on the idea of the game. If the game is kind of like a meme game, which I think I'm going to build. I'm going to build a little meme game here pretty soon.
Nice.
Just like a fun little game, available on Steam, like $6-7, $5, 6, 7, like a fun little state on society, a little commentary on society.
Not to sidetrack you, were you involved in, what is it, the texting of the bread? Was that you?
That's my idea.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah. Talk about taking a risk. That was like our first. That was our first foray into the iPhone space. And I'll tell you what, man, that was like there are things that you do and you look back on, you're like, what were you like? Really? You wanted to make a game that was built around texting? Like it was an homage to Typing of the Dead on the Dreamcast. Like that's the game that you wanted to do an homage to. So yeah, we did it. And I think I want to say we broke even or maybe lost a little bit of money on it. I remember the development cost on it was like $50,000. And which at the time was like, what? You want to pay? That's how much it was, $50,000. And that was like a big portion of our budget for the year. So it was like, this thing better work. We spent like $50,000 on that. And I think we like barely broke even, if we did. But it was just like, it was fun. It was cool to be like, yeah, we got this iPhone game. And it taught me a lot. Taught me a lot about the process of getting taking a game, building a game, development of a game, even something as simple as a iPhone game, and then how the distribution aspect of it, and then that eventually led to, like I said, the Angry Video Game Nerd games and the other games we got involved in. So, it's all just like you learn a little bit, as you go along. So, yeah, good old texting of the bread, man, that was fun.
Oh, did I send you off on the tangent because you were talking about you were thinking about a new sort of?
Well, yeah. So if I was to do like a full-fledged game again, I think I'd want to have some sort of physical option for it,
Mm,
for sure. I mean, obviously, it doesn't make sense not to release a game on Steam today, but I would
mhm.
love to have a physical option, whether it's just for PC or whether it's, I mean, we probably never get something made physically for a home console. Maybe not. I don't know. It kind of depends on the cost, but it would be cool to have some sort of physical copy specifically for PC.
I mean, because you've had, unfortunately, the whole limited run games
Yeah.
sort of thing happen, which sucks because that literally happened right when I got my Shredder's Revenge.
Hmm.
And because I was like, dude, the Pizza Hut certificate,
Yeah.
like, heck yeah, that brings back memories. I remember doing that all the time. The reading thing. And that I don't know if if that market has really been untapped because people they truly want, like what you said, physical copies of stuff. And it's like, yeah, now like how much would it cost to have it on Nintendo, like on the Switch or on the Xbox One
Right.
and whatnot. But it's one of those things where the triple A things, it's like, oh yeah, like we give you like the physical stuff, just buy the collector's edition and then you'll get all this XYZ along with it.
Right.
But something about it, like to me, the perfect physical copy of a game was the Sega Genesis. You had the case with the tab that you literally could just put on the wall and you could then go and scan. I still have my original Hyperstone Heist of everything. And I remember specifically how I got Hyperstone Heist because I really wanted to play Turtles in Time, but it was only for Super Nintendo. I didn't have a Super Nintendo. Oh, they
Right.
have one for Sega Genesis. What? Like I need it. Like give it to
Right.
me.
Right.
Like to now. And you got a manual that gave you all the instructions, all the stuff. And I mean, you could probably some people might even say the Nintendo version was better. Like Legend of Zelda, you got the whole map. You had a colored book of like you explaining the stories and stuff. But now games don't even have the inserts anymore. It's just the
Right.
game,
Right.
and
You can
it's
scan a QR code to get access to the instruction booklet.
mhm.
Right.
And that for me, I somewhat think about like what are the AAA companies doing to where you can't do that stuff? Like I kind of have an idea. It's because you're putting all the stuff into making it as realistic as possible. So you're doing you need all these special cameras that capture every aspect of the actor. And now we're getting into the point where the actor, whoever it is the character. But then of course that opens up another rabbit hole of them de-womenizing women and feminine or masculating them,
Right.
that aspect. But it's it's also like what you said with the PS1, PS2 type era. Like I love the pre-made cutscenes of PS2 games where
Sure.
and the PS3 to where it's not super realistic, but it convinces you enough for it to be true, to be like, I can believe that sort of thing.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now.
Mhm.
I remember seeing, well, I guess Final Fantasy VII was PlayStation 1, but I remember seeing the Final Fantasy VII cutscene and being like, "Is that real? Like, they can do that in video games? Oh my gosh." I was floored by that. And yeah, there's definitely something to that element of like, I will say this. We've seen so many leaps in technology over the years, and I don't think we're ever going to see the leap that we saw, obviously from a technological standpoint, that we saw from, say, the leap from the Super Nintendo to the N64, or
Mhm.
the N64 to the GameCube, or PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2. Now these leaps are like, they're just enough to be like, okay, yeah, I guess. Like at a certain point, you go from 1080p 60 frames to like 4K, and you're like, all right. So there's
I
it's
have I have
yeah.
yet to dive into I have yet to dive into the 4K.
Why? Like, there's no reason to dive into the 4K. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, my friends are like, "Oh, they're real cheap now. The monitors are real cheap," and it's like, I guess. I mean, but how much is it really needed? And then of course I hear people who are like, "Oh, I'm so used to 4K now that if I play it on something different, it just throws me off." And it's like,
Right.
I mean, I guess so.
You managed to find the Mark the Cyborg. Mark the Cyborg is your he is your frames per second snob who's like, I can't play anything less than 60 frames. It's ridiculous. Like,
Oh gosh, really?
that's kind of Mark's
Oh man.
thing. So yeah, man, that's awesome. I love talking about this stuff for sure. What's up,
Uh
Smash?
what up, Chaos Smash? How'd I manage to get Stuttering Craig is be or how you managed to get Stuttering Craig is beyond me to well, a lot of
It was this amazing new technology called email,
mhm,
where Greg was like, "Hey, man, do you want to come on the show?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I can't right now." And then he followed up, and I was like, "Yeah,
mhm.
I can't right now." And then he followed up again. I was like, "Yeah, let's make it happen." So
Okay. Oh, so my nude pics didn't go through. Dang it.
no, didn't see those, and if they
Dang it.
were, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought that was gonna be like my this will for sure get him on.
This'll get him
This
in.
will get him on for sure.
Clap the old foot long down. There you go.
Okay. You've a weird transition,
Please, yes.
but
That's actually what the email said. A weird transition. It was just a weird dick pic.
no,
Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, just ignore that. But but so you started up ScrewAttack.
Yes.
You took it to the next level. You did the best that you could. I do think it's one of it is probably the number one thing that really, like you said, took off with the pop culture video game elements too. And then sadly, you kind of stuff happened, and I've heard you kind of explain about it before on other shows and stuff. And I've got
When you say sadly, what do you mean? Like me leaving Screw Attack, or me leaving Rooster Teeth, or me selling,
well,
or
all of that is what I
okay.
meant.
Yeah,
All of
sure.
that is what I meant. And
Mhm.
so then, I've got July 2002. You left Game Attack, is what I'm
2020.
20. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2020, I think, is when it was. It was when everything was like going insane.
Okay.
I think it was
That
July 2020.
that
So
might have
yeah,
been my dyslexia kicking me
yeah.
in because I'm like 2000.
Yeah, so the TLDR is sold Screw Attack, worked for the company that acquired the company that acquired
Mhm,
Screw Attack, a company called Fullscreen. Fullscreen then acquired Rooster Teeth,
mhm,
and then they were like, "Hey guys, play nice." So Fullscreen plopped Screw Attack as a part of Rooster Teeth, as a brand under Rooster Teeth, without really knowing what to do with it. And Rooster Teeth didn't know what to do with this either, and we didn't know how to work with Rooster Teeth. We were just kind of like, so they throw us together. It was the worst 3 years of my life from a business perspective. It sucked.
mm.
I hated working while I was there. It was just so hard to get anything done. And I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Okay.
So about 2.5 years, I had a 3-year contract after I sold the company. About 2.5 years into that, I was like, hey, I'm kind of done with the Screw Attack thing because um, it was going to grow regardless. Death Battle had kind of taken over as the top show, and I felt like the audience wasn't necessarily listening to us. Like that's one thing I always prided myself on, and I pride myself now with side scrollers is when we spoke at Screw Attack, the audience listened, and when the audience spoke, we listened. And I felt like that was really jumbled with Death Battle.
Mm.
It we'd post something that was we felt was important, and the response would be like, well, Goku should have beat Superman, or Superman should have beat Goku. And it's like, whatever. And that was like the comment section now. So I felt like there was a disconnect. So my response was like, well, I'm going to start over and start a brand new gaming brand, and it's going to be the third leg of the major brands at Rooster Teeth. They had Achievement
Mhm.
Hunter, They had Funhouse, and Game Attack was going to be the third brand. And originally it wasn't going to be called Game Attack. That was a Jeff Ramsey thing. He's like, it should be called Game Attack. We had another another name.
I had that listed over here, so thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. Like it was going to be something. I don't even remember what it was going to be, but I remember like sitting down and talking to Jeff Ramsey, and he's like, "That's a good name. I'm going to take it. Don't use that." So whatever the name was, I don't even know if it saw the light of day, but that always like kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So launch Game Attack with the intention of like working with Rooster Teeth and and all that stuff. And it was a mess. So like 6 months later, I'm like, okay, well, I'm out. See ya. And I leave Rooster Teeth, but they're cool enough to like let me take Game Attack with me. And I think it was kind of like it was actually kind of a both. It was like, I'm out, but also they're like, you're out type of thing. They didn't really want to work with me anymore. I didn't really want to work with them. So I would say, I think technically I was fired, but it was like one of those like, thanks, type of things. No, you know what? I know I was fired. Now, wow, this is bringing back some memories. Yes, I was fired because what happened was, and this is the most messed up thing about it, was I was up in Dallas, and my boss, man, you just opened up a wound here.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm just giving you a hard time. My boss, his name was Ezra Cooperstein, and Ezra was running Rooster Teeth at the time. And I kind of felt things were coming because I was not happy. They were not happy. And I was doing this Game Attack thing, and I was getting like no help from Rooster Teeth at all. And at this point, I'm the guy running Rooster Teeth. Everybody at ScrewAttack had moved down to Austin at this point. But so at this point, for like the last 6 months or 8 months or whatever it was, Game Attack had this whole like 10,000 square foot office that previously housed ScrewAttack. Everyone at ScrewAttack had moved down to Austin except for the Game Attack guys. And that was me, Sean Bolin, and Chase, I think at the time. And because originally Game Attack consisted of me, Sean Bolin, Sam Mitchell, and Chad James. But they were kind of like moonlighting with Game Attack while they were doing ScrewAttack stuff and Death Battle stuff. But anyway, so we're kind of at the end of the rope. My boss asked me to come down to Austin, and it was a 3.5 hour drive down to Austin. He's like, "Hey, we got to talk." Conversation lasted like 3 minutes. I walk in, he's like, "Hey," and he like, "Hey, we're gonna let you go. It's not working out. But you can keep Game Attack with you." And that's how I kept Game Attack on the way out. And at that point, he fired myself and Sean Bolin, and I think Parker. And I think that was like, I don't remember who else, but I think that but everybody who got fired was like, "All right, you're coming with me. Let's go do Game Attack." And anyways, started Game Attack as a video brand, and it eventually became like a live streaming brand. And it went really well for like 2.5, 3 years. And then the world went insane in 2020. And so did my business partner. And then I just was like, "Hey, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this with you anymore because you're insane." And they didn't want to do it with me either, or at least he didn't want to do it with me either. So yeah, left there. And I guess that's kind of where the story continues. That's where we were at before I kind of gave you the TLDR, which was not a TLDR.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Like I said, that's kind of why I like having guests on and hearing them explain it as opposed to just reading about it. But yeah, driving down 3 hours to
get fired. Yeah.
Get fired. Wow.
Gay.
Yeah. Listen, it felt that way. Like I remember leaving and I was so mad. I was like,
I would be too.
He was
what a bitch.
Well, his thing was, I wanted to see you face to face. I wanted to tell you face to face. It's like, well, thanks for making me drive down here. Like, if it was really that important to you, like, you come to me, So I remember, like, I was so mad, and I was like, in like the entire 3.5 hour drive, I'm like driving back. I'm like, like trying to think like, okay, what are we doing? What's it? And I remember like just that's when I do my best thinking is when I'm like I'm upset. So
hey, good channeling.
Yeah, right. Channeling the anger. Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, it was fun. We saw success with ScrewAttack. We saw good success with Game Attack. Eventually got bought out of Game Attack, bought 50% back, and and Sean took that. And then I kind of piddled around for a little bit. I was building some other fun little things on the side. I was building this thing called Collaborator Club, which I was like really excited about. And then I got like out of the blue, I got an offer to go. I got recruited to go work in the firearms space, which was like,
oh, cool.
It was like totally out of left field.
Nice.
And so I was like, because what they more or less initially, the initial idea behind the company was they wanted me to build more or less a ScrewAttack in the gun space, except it was going to be all about like firearm safety and all, it's going to be like really cool. But that shifted dramatically over the year that I worked at that company. And the original vision of the company was a lot different than what it was when I left. So yeah, I left there after a year, met a lot of great people doing that. And really, it was so different that like, I'm really glad that I did it. And then I got out, I got done, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I looked back at the gaming space because I had like retired from video games. I was like, I'm never going to do video games again. And I was just so out of it. And then I looked back at the video game space and I was like, oh my gosh, this place is just insane. Like, and if, like what we're seeing today is kind of what I saw on the horizon. And I was like, I just want to make fun of things and tell everybody that they're not stupid, that they're, like tell people that they're stupid and let everybody else know that they're not insane. And that's kind of how Side Scrollers was born or reborn. And, the show's gone exceptionally well.
Yeah, you guys are killing it, man.
It's been really fun, man. It's been really fun to get back to it. And, we've had such a great group of people who have embraced the show. And, today, like I said, we were talking about it before the show, before we went live here, but I'm like really proud of like today's show where we had this guy on who's like, I don't understand what you're upset about. And we talked. And hopefully we provided a little bit of perspective to him about like why there's this entire section of regular people that they're just like, stop messing with our games,
Yeah. Oh man, like I was with Blabs on that one of just like at some point it's just like the battle hardened glaze sort of thing too, because it's I forgot you might have pointed it out or maybe Dev pointed it out, but we're talking about the AAA companies.
Yeah.
You have this mindset of the like small indie company, which is great. That's great for you to share that feedback of what that is. But like unfortunately to me, like there was a lot of skirting around the questions and stuff like that. It's just like come on, dude. It's a yes or no question, like sort of thing. But obviously you can't give that, whether it's again to like the fear of the pushback or you legitimately believe in that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he came on definitely with an agenda today. And I think his agenda was to just say like, hey, man, these guys, these little developers, because, I mentioned we were introduced through Irina. And Irina was the girl who was like, we're not going to have any white people in our demo and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, like she was like, John will be on your show. I'm not going to be on your show, but John will be on the show. So I think John's mission today was more or less to try to temper the flames a little bit, the heat that was put on his friend. And, he came in with some really, like in our private DMs, one of the things he said to me was something to the effect of like, what positive have you done with this community? Like, what's the positive thing that you've done with this? Everything is negative. And and it was one of those things where you go like, you clearly don't watch the show, right? You don't understand that this. He said something to me and very early on in the conversation was he said, and I want to pull it up and read it. He says, I'm writing an article that will get seen by a lot of game developers and investors. I'll partly use what happened with Irina over the last week and the gist of what game developers should understand about your community and others like it. And I said, well, when you say your audience, what you actually mean is your audience as well, because my audience is gamers who want to consume your products. And he went on this tangent about like, we have an opportunity to do this really great thing with indie developers. And it's like, no, all developers should listen to us because this is your core audience. This is your audience that wants to spend money. You have a group of 357,000 people who are saying they're done with this. That if those 357,000 people don't buy a game, that's $25 million in lost revenue.
I don't get that mentality. How can you just ignore that sort of thing?
Yeah.
He was projecting for sure. I'll say it right now. Like, I don't know where he's getting that from, but like the projection off of that guy was insane. And wait, was he one of the developers from the lady that like was commenting about all our like the 5 like our demo is going to have the 5 white people or something?
He was a friend of hers. He's a friend of hers, and she introduced me to him. So she doesn't work on there. But I've invited her on. I wouldn't, so when you have somebody on, there's a line that you got to draw, right? Because you want to be polite and you want to hear their thoughts, right? And I always try to hear other people's perspectives on the show, even though people are like, you're in a bubble. It's like, no, we try to break that bubble as much as we possibly can if people are willing to come on and actually have constructive conversation. John was willing to have that conversation. Now,
I don't give him props for that.
Right. I don't think that he came in, like the fact that we were bringing him, and I don't know if we mentioned this on the post show or after he left, or if we talked about this shortly after we went off, but we were mentioning things that we have talked about on the show. These moments, the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff, the EA developer who was saying these horrible things, and he wasn't aware of these things, right? And you can't, like, if we're talking about these things, he said these things are like, what do you say, minor or something, or petty or something. You think he used the word petty, and it's like,
nah,
these aren't petty because these are things that we care about, right? None of us are racist. None of us are sexist. We only want what's best for people. Just don't inject this stuff into the games. It's very simple, right? If you want to do this, make your own character. Awesome, cool, great. There's I think of like a game like Horizons. I have a buddy who's a developer, and he played like the original Horizon Zero Dawn, and then like the sequel came out. He's like, what did they do to the character? Like, she's totally different. And guess what? SBI was associated with it, right? And it was one of those things where they kind of nerfed her. They made her, they made her this passive, like, I don't know, they just totally changed it. And he's like, I could totally tell that something had drastically changed in this character that I had grown affection for in the first one. So yeah, but I think him not knowing those examples really spoke pretty loud about kind of the bubble that he's in as well. No,
I definitely agree. It's, for me though, and that excuse can't hold up forever, because you're just digging yourself deeper into the fact of, well, now you're just staying in your own bubble and you're not listening to critique, and the ammo in your back pocket is like what you said. Well, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're this, you're that. It's, people have seen the bullshit. They're done with it, and it doesn't work anymore. That's right. That's the big thing, is that it doesn't work anymore. And you can go ahead and keep on saying it like over and over and over again, but at the end of the day, it's like what you pointed out too. If you're going to be saying that, and X amount of people don't buy the game, which means X amount of money you did not make, sort of thing, like, if anything, the money should be talking. And I don't believe for a second that these people truly believe that their games are making money, because the truth of the matter is, if a game was solely based on literally following the DEI requirements to a T, I guarantee you it will not sell. It will not sell. That's why they target already established franchises and think they can just do this bullshit copy and paste of replacement. That's why, to me, I'm not a big comic person either, but in the whole comic area with the multiverse and the time traveling and stuff, it is the greatest thing that these people have ever gotten, because then they can create a different timeline, bastardize everything, and then declare that their one is the proper one, while pushing everybody else to the side.
Right. And I think that conversation is so fascinating to have, and I would love to have that conversation, and talk about this, because that's the thing is like I've said this for years, even before side scrollers. Like the better, the more we can converse with each other, the better, right? And I've had this label like right wing put on me, right? Like super conservative guy, and it's like, what are you talking about? Like, if it goes back to that Elon Musk meme of the guy who's like kind of left, and then the left goes crazy over here, and then he's kind of right, and then the left keeps, and then he's all the way, he's a crazy right. Like, that's kind of how I felt. I think that's how a lot of people felt over the last few years. And that's where we talk about like the extreme nature of this, of these actions, right? To where people are looking at this going like, what? And that's why side scrollers exist, because side scrollers is going like, no, that's not normal. No. We don't like that, no. And it has nothing to do with all the ists and the phobes and all that stuff. It's just, hey, cool, do it. Just do it in your own space, do it in your own time, make your own character, whatever it may be. And that goes for black, white, gay, straight, pick anything you want, it doesn't matter. Just find it and do your own thing, and leave established stuff, characters alone and franchises alone. It's real simple.
It's so simple, but yet they can't do it. But that's why I truly believe that they know that won't sell. That's what I think too. And like one of the things that really, that I mean, it's going down a conspiracy theory, and I don't really have the receipts, but I think one of the main video games to try to have in their back pocket to showcase that it would sell is indeed what was brought up during your guys' show, was The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I've played The Last of Us Part 1, and it's an okay story. A lot of people declare it a revolutionizing masterpiece. I don't personally think so. I enjoyed the concept of a post-apocalyptic, not super post-apocalyptic, but a world that has been contaminated with fungus and bacteria. I really liked that element. I liked that twist to a zombie sort of outbreak sort of thing. Very unique, very original, and definitely a good story in terms of Part 1. The gameplay, it's your basic third person switching between guns, sneaking up on people, attacking them, Part 2. But there was definitely room for potential. Then Part 2 came out, and the leaks showed that everybody hated it. They hated it, to the main characters being brought back just to have them killed off, to then the new character to be established to be like this woman that's not womanly, but has a bunch of masculine features to it and whatnot. And because everybody hated it, to me, then they took their rage out on the game that I think should have won a lot of awards, was Ghost of Tsushima, who got attacked because the one guy who was playing the flute at the Game Awards and stuff was white, even though he trained under like the master of that musical equipment. I think it literally gave him like the seal of approval sort of thing. And then from there, the Game Awards, they won all these awards. It's the golden calf that I think that they really tried, and Kuckerman sacrificed that series to try to showcase, no, this does work. People did love this game. People did do this. And now look what's happening. No one cared when the remastered or something like that happened again. There was a remaster. Now there's another one, and they've downgraded features of the characters from the first one. And now I recently saw an article where Neil is like, oh yeah, I think I'm almost done with video games. Like, that's it. Like he's done, sort of thing. He doesn't want to do it anymore. And it's like you don't. Was it worth it? Was it worth sacrificing it on the altar to appease a bunch of people who really what they're asking for is already in a bunch of games already, your character creation models and stuff like that. But no.
Well, but I mean, also consider this: Last of Us Part One sold 18 million. Last of Us Part Two sold 10. You know, that's a pretty drastic change. You know, for something that like 10 million. Let's be clear: 10 million copies is phenomenal, right? And it clearly made the money back. But at the same time, you're slicing your profits to nearly half. So, yeah, I mean, it's very clear that there's the gamers are speaking out loud, and it's just a matter of if these developers and companies are listening, and they will listen when it comes to their pocketbook. At least the investors will start making a little bit of noise when they say, "Hey, how come we're not making as much money as we could be making?" So.
Yep. Well, we are coming up on the allotted hour. Real quickly, let's not end on a sour note. I want to end on something dope. Couple of interesting facts I found. You love food eating challenges. Is that still true?
I used to when I could do them.
Okay.
Now my metabolism doesn't hold up. But yeah, I've done a million food challenges. Did a lot of them on video back in the day. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And I also read that you love platformers and fighting games. Is that still the genres that you still enjoy, or have you branched out more? Or
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to categorize it.
I like games with guns too. First person, third person games, battle royale games. Helldivers is super fun.
I just got Helldivers too as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
spreading that democracy all over the place.
I like any game that allows me the opportunity to play with friends. That's really what it comes down to. Games to me are a social experience. And while I enjoy the single player experience of like the classic games, Donkey Kong Country, Mario World, things like that, those are awesome. I love the multiplayer experience of Super Mario Kart or Helldivers or Apex or something along those lines.
Awesome. Well, Craig, again, super humbled, super blessed that you were on the show. I feel like we've just scratched the surface. Obviously, we can talk about so much stuff. So as we're closing down here, I've got all of your social medias of Side Scrollers and your X in the description below. But anything you want to plug in before we sign off?
Well, I'm going to have some news when it comes to Take Games Back at takegamesback.com. I'll have some news on that here in the coming weeks. Once I finish up here, I'm going to say goodnight to my kids. I'm going to say goodnight to my wife, and then I'm going to get to work on that because I got some things I got to get done tonight to send over to our developer. But yeah, everyday Side Scrollers. I appreciate you guys popping over and supporting Greg and it's every day is something new. And tomorrow's going to be cool as well. We got a bunch of good hosts on tomorrow, which if you follow us on X, you would know. But tomorrow should be really fun as we're going to have a first timer on the show. We're going to have a master of TDS on the show where we're going to talk about some bots when it comes to IGN and Disney and people leveraging X, as well as somebody from last week who's coming back already. Madam Savvy is coming back. She was excellent last week. So
yeah, I really enjoyed Madam Savvy.
So yeah, we got a good rest of the week. So appreciate you guys popping in, and thanks for having me on, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just encourage people, if you enjoyed the show, make sure to smash that subscribe button, punch that like button, ring the bell to get notified when I go live, whether that's Power Up Podcast, either with a guest or a solo show, my game streamings. They're all around 8 p.m. Central Time. And then on the weekends, whenever I pop up, and currently working on a new series called Spirit Power Unleashed. And that's more of analyzing pop culture and the supernatural aspects of it, but having a scriptural, biblical take on stuff, because you'll be pretty amazed of if you're rooted on scripture and Christianity and stuff of kind of where all the origins of a lot of stuff comes from. So working on that series. First episode, we'll be talking about Constantine, specifically Mammon. So you don't want to miss that. But anyway, thanks again, Craig. You guys take care. God bless. And I wanted to talk to you about the Boondock Saints, but we'll get to that another time because I love the Boondocks. I had a poster, and you said something on your show about a little bit about the Boondock Saints 3 movie, which has been confirmed, but that'll be another time
for sure.
Another time. But take care, people. And like Rocco says, catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.
Still here. That's me. All right, everybody. Bye bye.